I'm Tasmin Lockwood, a technology journalist.
I'm Scott Steinhardt. I'm a comms person.
No extra info today, Scott.
Nope, just comms person, sticking with it.
Okay, comms person, let's go. Scott, there is a bunch of stuff happening with open weight models. Tell me from the top, what is an open weight model?
So open weight models and open source models, they're conflated. They're not the same thing. The whole idea is that like open weight models are just models that have been like pre-trained using data that you could just download off the internet, put on a machine of your choosing, one that you actually physically own, or a server somewhere, and just spin up a large language model. That way you're able to control access, you're able to control cost, etc.
So open weight essentially is the type of AI model that we're all using when we use OpenAI's ChatGPT or Anthropic's Claude. Are they open weight models?
No, so those are proprietary models that you don't have control over the hardware and the access to. The difference between, Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, etc., is that you just use them based on API or OAuth user access, and you pay per token usage. Whereas if you have an open weight model, you are paying or handling how it's deployed on the hardware, but the tokens are essentially free technically, since you're not paying for those, you're just paying for the hardware.
Who makes open weight models?
Open weight models are produced by a lot of labs around the world. You know, Google had Gemma, which was an open weight model. OpenAI has an open weight model as well. Meta famously made their Llama models, which I think the most recent is Llama 4, which came out last year. And it's just a model you can download on your computer. So like if you have a nice MacBook Pro, you can load it on there, or at least a compressed version of it that does essentially the basic tasks of which you'd expect it to do. If you have more powerful hardware, like if you have a bunch of really souped up NVIDIA chips and a bunch of RAM, like a couple of terabytes, you can download even more powerful models and run them. The benefit of the open weight model is not just cost, but a lot of the most recent open weight models allow you to have performance that's on par with some of the best proprietary models, like from Anthropic and OpenAI and so on.
So, Scott, I can download this model locally and use it, say any sort of, open weight model. So how is that different from open source? You mentioned that there's been a lot of conflation between the two.
Yeah, so when you download an open weight model, you actually don't know what data it's trained on. And a lot of the data that is being used to train large language models, both proprietary models and open weight models, is a lot of it's copyrighted data. So you actually don't know what you have when you download an open weight model, versus open source model is kind of an open weight model where you actually do just know what it's trained on. They're few and far between in comparison to open weight models. Like research labs are not going to give away their entire secret sauce. Open weight models allow them to distribute the model without actually showing how it was. So that's why it's not called open source. But the Paul Allen Institute famously released an open source AI model not terribly long ago, which shows pretty much everything, if I'm not mistaken.
So why should people care about open weight models?
One, going back to who's producing them, the most popular and I would say the most powerful open weight models are coming from China right now. It's sort of like a show of soft power of the distribution of open weight models that you could just download and put on like your own server somewhere. And this allows you to spin up a model that's pretty much as powerful as like a Claude Sonnet, some as powerful as Claude Opus or Claude Fable or close to. And this allows
Close to Fable.
Yes, close to Fable on a lot of tasks. And so this allows you to forego the inane cost that comes with spending millions upon millions of tokens for tasks and for agents and such. I know people that are using Minimax, which is another, if I'm not mistaken, Chinese open weight model for the express purpose of, using an AI agent. And the cost for running that, if you build it up, if you compare it to the token cost of a Claude or an OpenAI or a Gemini, is incredibly like minimal by comparison. So that's why people should care about it, because it's similar or on par performance. Maybe not, the number one best performing model, but it is essentially one of the best models that exist right now.
Do you have to pay to then download these models? It's not immediately clear to me why anybody would be using some of the proprietary LLMs when there's this option right here when you can essentially get on par models for free, essentially, if you're downloading it locally. Or is it a hardware issue? It's just that, like, the average Joe doesn't have really top quality chips, like sat in their bedroom with them.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, like the biggest worry is that if I can get 90 to 95% the same performance with an open weight model that I can with a model that I would pay $200 or $20 or whatever a month to use, then why would I pay the $20 or $200 a month per seat to use that, especially if I'm an enterprise? And the answer is I wouldn't. Now, that's, you're seeing OpenAI lose market share. You're seeing a lot of talk about stifling of American, AI progress, specifically on our side of the pond, because that's where a lot of the frontier labs are. And you're seeing a lot of this discussion because these are free things that are given away by companies in China, which have strong ties to the Chinese government. Again, it's a show of soft power. Now, there are questions about the data that's being used in it. Perhaps they may not be so forthcoming about what happened in Tiananmen Square or various things about Xi Jinping and other things that I will say on this video that will get me flagged by some foreign adversaries. If you're trying to build code, or if you're trying to write an essay, or if you're trying to do a bunch of agentic tasks and you're using an open weight model, you're gonna have similar, if not the same, success as you would with a proprietary model.
So it makes sense why the existing AI industry perhaps would not be fans of open weight models then, but for the user, it actually sounds like they're more favorable.
The upside is, again, cost. The fact that you could just run it on hardware versus, paying money to a company. They're not phoning home. The downside is, A, you don't know what they're trained on. B, the hardware to actually spin these up is getting, more expensive by the hour. And
when we think about something like DeepSeek, and you said that there's this conflation between open source and open weight, where does that sit amongst these two?
Like you can download DeepSeek and put it on a computer. You can't do that with ChatGPT, and you can't do that with Claude and Gemini. Even Meta
training, you can't see its training data though, DeepSeek.
No, you can't see its training data at all.
Open weight. Okay.
Yeah. And so the whole idea behind it is like, and the idea of giving away free models, there's a lot of ways that these companies can make money and have made money on this. For example, it's too expensive to, host these models. So these companies do have APIs that let you use the model that way. Thus, you're paying with using tokens. Token cost is smaller compared to that of various other frontier AI labs. They will set up their own environments so companies can use them. As you and I discussed in a previous video, they did that for African startups. DeepSeek is the model, the go-to model for African startups right now. The more adoption of these open weight models or their APIs and their proprietary hosting, the more adversarial nations that are building these models are chipping away at the foundation that's been built by OpenAI, Claude, etc.
And why does that matter?
Honestly, I've given some thought to this, and it's really just sort of technological superiority in terms of model. Like these open weight models are arena.ai, which is seen by a lot as the benchmarking site for AI. They're not the number
Hmm.
one models for all tasks, but they're the number five, they're the number four, and that's good enough for most places. Also, the question is if these companies and the countries that help these companies thrive are giving away free open weight models, what are the models that they're not giving away, that they're not displaying, and that they're using? So that's
Interesting.
that's sort of my tinfoil hat thinking on that. If we go back to last year, DeepSeek, I believe R3 was built for about $26.4 million. If you look at the Frontier AI labs, they're spending billions upon billions, hundreds of billions of dollars pre, post, and just training these models. Whereas DeepSeek was able to distill models, which is essentially steal knowledge from other models, while also using lower powered chips to train their own. It kind of like chips away at the whole idea that you need to spend billions of dollars to build the best models in the world, because maybe you don't.
But DeepSeek like really shook the industry when it was first released, right? Because as you say, it was built at a fraction of the cost on, like less powerful chips. But we haven't really had another DeepSeek moment.
So I would say that the next DeepSeek moment is what we're currently going through with like
Okay.
GLM 5.1 and 5.2, with Kimi K3. These are things that are almost on par with Fable, which is sort of like a little bit of a crimped version of Odd Mythos. And the fact that you have to spend hundreds of dollars just to use Fable, or you can just download a Chinese analog to Fable that was trained for probably a lot less money than Fable. It's sort of poking holes in the theory that companies need to spend billions of dollars, that they need to build power plants and sort of poison the waters in Mississippi to train large language models, and when they could just maybe not do that and follow whatever China's
Yeah.
doing.
I feel like when DeepSeek was released, we kind of had a similar revelation, say, but nothing really happened afterwards. Like that was the moment where everybody was like, oh, why are we doing this the way we're doing it? Why are we throwing money at this? Why are we doing like the whole we must scale thing to build? Classic like Silicon Valley adage in a way, like don't work harder, work smarter. That's literally what China has done here. And we had that revelation when DeepSeek was released, and yet nothing seems to have changed in terms of how these AI labs in the US are building their models.
I really do think that the significant things that happened in AI since that, in like the last year and a half, where Google is able to match the abilities of Anthropic and OpenAI's models. OpenAI kind of like stumbled at the gate with GPT-5, and I think they've been paying for that ever since. And then you had the whole Mythos debate, which is really just a slightly like a more capable Opus or Fable, and that just happens to be pretty good at penetration testing and finding security holes. And that's sort of it. Everything has been more or less iterative. Since, as you and I are speaking, Opus 5 has been released by OpenAI, and at first glance, it just looks like it's a slightly more token efficient model,
Mm.
uh, but still iterative on the last version of Opus that came out. In China, like their open weights models have sort of caught up to where proprietary models are. I can't download the latest version of Claude, but if I had a big
Mm.
enough computer or powerful enough computer, I can download Kimi K3 today and just run it in a vacuum offline if I wanted to.
What do you think this means for existing frontier models? Like, is this sort of a game-changing, pivotal moment? I guess to me, it seems like open weight makes more sense, but there's a cost element to needing to invest in that capex for any company that did want to use open weight instead of like going to use the frontier models. And perhaps that's enough of a barrier because this world is obsessed with SaaS.
So we're seeing token costs kind of skyrocket, but we're also looking at new metrics like, cost per task. The government is starting to step in and take a look at new model releases apparently before they go out. It doesn't seem that, Frontier Labs are changing anything about how they train or post-train models. In fact, it seems like they're spinning up more and more data centers to do this, or at least leasing them from places like SpaceX.
I fear with Chinese models, it's like, is this all going back to China? Is this all going back to the Communist Party? But these are local models, like that data is safe if it's just on your own hardware.
Yeah, I mean, you can run it in a Faraday cage if you want, or like a completely isolated computer that has what is the data trained on. When DeepSeek first came out, when using DeepSeek's own API, you were able to realize that it will not say anything negative about Xi Jinping. Play with it a bit and take it off from their own hardware. You can get it to say whatever you want, honestly, and be as open and honest, or honest as much as a fancy predictive text model, of which large language models largely are.
So with open weight models, you can change the weighting, so you can change the way that it's trained.
Yeah, so hypothetically, a friend of mine downloaded Llama 3.1 from Meta, and the original instructions are to be friendly and to be non-hostile and not forego with information, and which would be dangerous. And you could just remove that and have it spit out, say, instructions on how to make C4 plastic explosives, which are readily available on the internet, but something that you could just ask a large language model that is hosted on your computer. Could you want to do that for research or for science, allegedly?
Okay, that's problematic.
It's incredibly problematic. My personal take on open weight models is these things should be treated almost like nuclear codes, like kept behind lock and key. And, if obviously a lot of information is already on the internet and it's readily accessible via search engine or via the dark web or whatever, but like to have these things essentially spit out information that you wanted to, and also do so in such a sycophantic way because they're designed to be that. Even the open weight models are. You'll have them say whatever you want. So there could be misinformation or blatant disinformation. There could be whatever the open weight equivalent of ChatGPT telling a handful of kids to kill themselves is. There's a recipe for disaster, and it's to be able to just download these things. It's not hard. It's just hardware and a program and a link.
So if there's one thing that we need to keep an eye on for, say, like the rest of the year when it comes to open weight models, what would it be in your perspective?
Market share and number of users. Like, more and more people are using large language models, and more people are relying on large language models. Are we going to see a shift of people using open weight models on a company server, or are we just going to see more people get access to Claude and ChatGPT? It'd be very interesting because some of these companies are going public, allegedly, which means that they rely on users and they rely on revenue and thus profit. Eventually, hopefully, maybe the stock market doesn't rely on profit anymore. I don't know. Is usage going to increase? The answer is almost certainly yes.
Thank you so much, Scott. It was good to see you.
Thanks, Tad. It's always good to see you as well.